This podcast is a work of historical interpretation. While we strive for accuracy, some aspects of history are open to interpretation and debate. Thank you for listening.
Somewhere beneath the hum of every hospital hallway, the whir of machinery in a trauma bay, or the quiet stillness of a cancer ward, there's blood moving through tubes, swarming in bags, saving lives.
And some of that blood, it's only there because someone somewhere rolled up their sleeves and said, yeah, take mine.
That's nice. Today on Time Tellers, we're going to talk about something that might be in you, or maybe even in someone else because of you. Blood donations. Their history, their science, their politics, and their life-saving power.
And we promise, maybe, sort of, a little bit, not too many needle jokes. Just a couple pints of knowledge, though.
Seriously?
What? That one landed. Blood pun. Did I totally ruin it?
Anyway, this is Time Tellers, and today we're telling the story of the lifeblood of a nation. That's not music.
You sure about that? You sure about that? Sorry. Too much time on TikTok. Continue.
Blood has always been symbolic. Power, family, life, death. Ancient Egyptians believed blood carried the soul. The Greeks, like Hippocrates, thought health was based on the balance of humors, including blood.
And if you were off balance, the fix? Leech it.
Yay!
Or just slicing open a vein.
Also yay.
Medieval medicine was full of it, literally.
Right. Bloodletting was the go-to treatment for centuries. It was crude, dangerous, and mostly ineffective. But it reinforced the idea that blood wasn't just part of the body. It was the body, or the soul, or the evil spirits inside.
Sometimes all at once.
Sounds like you.
Pretty much.
You're just evil.
Small, cute with the side of petty. A.k.a. Stitch. But not blue. Carry on.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure you're not blue?
Blue, ra-ba-dee-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-doo-da-da. You're the one who brought it up. I don't know. Actually, I did. Anyways, carry on.
Fast forward to the 17th century. In 1665, English physician Richard Lower conducted one of the first animal-to-animal blood transfusions, using a goose quill and a dog. Science.
Oh, poor puppers. But he did prove you could transfer blood from one being to another without instant death. So, yay?
Kind of. In France, Jean-Baptiste Denis, or Denis, some French thing, tried a human-to-animal transfusion next. A teenager with a fever was given lamb's blood. He survived miraculously, but others didn't. Eventually, transfusions were banned in France and England.
I can't believe he survived.
Well, it probably would just depend on how much blood.
True. Science took a few hundred years off, but curiosity didn't.
And this wasn't even the Dark Ages.
Dan and his hatred of the Dark Ages has reared its ugly face again.
I have not mentioned that in a long time.
I know, it's been a while. Yes.
It took until the 1800s for transfusions to resurface, but without understanding blood types, it was playing Russian roulette.
Cue the messy failures and actual death. It wasn't until the early 20th century that the missing piece was found. Blood types.
Yay. So picture it. It's 1901, Vienna. A scientist named Karl Landsteiner in his lab, fiddling with test tubes full of blood and watching what happens when you mix them.
Which sounds like a party until you realize he was watching them clump and explode.
Okay, hemolyze, Renee, not explode.
Not a science person.
We know. But still, his experiments showed that when you mix blood from two people, sometimes it reacts badly. Really badly.
Because of proteins on the surface of red blood cells, what we now call antigens, that's how he discovered the ABO system. A, B, AB, and O.
Type A has A antigens, B has B antigens, AB has both, and O has neither. And in the plasma, you've got antibodies, tiny soldiers that freak out if they see the wrong antigen.
So if you put the wrong blood in someone's veins, their immune system flips the table. like they were playing a game of Monopoly and losing.
Not everybody plays Monopoly like you do. That discovery changed everything. Suddenly, transfusions became possible without being deadly, and it didn't take long before medicine caught on, especially when the world caught fire.
Enter World War I. Blood in the trenches.
Where's World War I entering?
The conversation we're having right now.
Oh.
World War I was a nightmare for a lot of reasons, but medically, it forced innovation. Soldiers were dying from blood loss, and fast.
In 1914, doctors started experimenting with anticoagulants, specifically sodium citrate, to keep donated blood from clotting. That meant blood could be stored, transported, not just dumped directly from arm to arm.
And suddenly, the blood bank was born. It started small, collected, stored, used on the battlefield, but it was a revolution.
A revolution literally bathed in blood. Canadian Dr. Lawrence Bruce Robertson began transfusing stored blood to wounded soldiers, and his method saved thousands. They called it indirect transfusion.
By the 1930s, blood banks were popping up in hospitals in the U.S., the Soviet Union, and the U.K. The first American hospital blood bank opened in 1937 at Cook County Hospital in Chicago.
Meanwhile, the ABO system wasn't done evolving. In 1940, Landsteiner Weiner discovered the Rh factor, a second set of antigens that further complicated things. As if this wasn't complicated enough. Now, blood types included a plus or minus, like A plus, O negative, etc.
And speaking of O negatives, let's pause and honor our universal donor heroes, like me whenever I make it back to the community blood bank. Soon.
Yeah. Well, you definitely should for blood stock. You'll be hearing about that in a little bit. If you've got O negative blood, you are the emergency go-to. Hospitals hoard it. Trauma bays pray for it. It's the only type that can be safely given to anyone in a crisis, especially when you don't have time to type and cross-match.
But AB+, you're the sponge. You can receive anything. Universal recipient. Like a blood vacuum. Lucky you.
World War II saw the first large-scale nationwide effort to collect civilian blood. In 1940, Dr. Charles Drew developed new ways to store and ship plasma. He helped create the first bloodmobiles, trucks that collected blood on the go.
Drew's innovations led to the Red Cross Blood for Britain campaign. Thousands of Americans donated blood that was processed into plasma and sent overseas for wounded soldiers.
And once the U.S. entered the war, it became even bigger. By 1945, over 13 million units of blood had been collected by the American Red Cross.
But it wasn't all heroic. There was racism, too. Of course. The military initially banned blood from black donors. When that was reversed, partially thanks to Charles Drew's own push, they still segregated it. No scientific reason, of course. Just prejudice, because that's, yeah.
And it outraged Drew so much, he eventually resigned from the Red Cross. That's a name you don't forget. Charles Drew, innovator, leader, and activist.
Still, the war normalized the idea of blood donation. It wasn't just battlefield triage anymore. It was civic duty.
Post-war, the system stuck around.
Sorry.
The Red Cross began collecting for civilian hospitals. Hospitals created their own blood banks. The modern donation structure was finally here.
After World War II, blood donation was no longer just wartime heroics. It was part of the American medical landscape. The image of the proud citizen walking into a donation center became a Norman Rockwell painting come to life.
Yay. Can you remind our listeners who Norman Rockwell is?
Well, he was a painter and photographer. Although I think he was mostly primarily painting. There's a lot of his stuff has been turned into puzzles over the years. Very quaint 1950s home life, with the mother and the father and the two kids and the garage and garage and car in every driveway and the dog running around. Oh, and the white picket fence. I mean, not that was reality, but
literally. There was a Rockwell painting, Give Blood, ran on a 1950s poster with that wholesome apple-cheeked volunteer giving a side smile and an armful of red, white, and plasma.
But the 1950s also started to reveal cracks in the system. There were questions. How safe is this blood? Where does it go? Who's profiting? And who gets it?
By the 1960s, a two-tiered system was in full swing in the U.S. You had volunteer donors and you had paid donors.
Paid blood meant money in the pocket, sure, but also meant more risk. Desperate people sometimes meant riskier donations. Some were sick, some lied about their health, some gave a lot, too much.
It created a moral and medical dilemma. Was blood a public good or a private commodity?
And this was also the rise of plasma centers, places where you could sell your plasma for cash. That's the clearish part of your blood, full of proteins. It's used to make medicine, vaccines, therapies for things like hemophilia.
It's not the same as whole blood donation, and these centers are for-profit. They're not sending your donation to your local ER. They're shipping it off to make immunoglobulin treatments or vaccines, and they could pay you for it.
Which means, surprise, if you're at a blood bank, they can't pay you. It's against FDA regulations. Blood for transfusions has to come from volunteers. No money, no pressure. However, they can offer incentives.
Yep, which you will hear about at Bloodstock. And for good reason. Volunteer blood has a lower risk of transmissible disease, and it's why places like Community Blood Bank exist. More on that later.
Enter the Cold War era. More than just nuclear bombs, duck and cover drills, and red baiting, blood was still political.
In the 1960s and 70s, civil rights activists noticed disparities in healthcare, including access to safe blood. Urban hospitals and poor neighborhoods often relied more on paid blood, while richer hospitals leaned on volunteer banks.
That meant poorer patients were more likely to get high-risk transfusions. It wasn't always visible, but it was there. A quiet inequality. Blood inequality.
Literally.
Quite literally.
By the 1970s, public health advocates started calling for an end to paid blood donations. In 1975, the World Health Organization officially recommended that all blood be collected from unpaid voluntary donors.
Meanwhile, America was slow to change.
Shocker.
The for-profit plasma industry kept booming, but blood for transfusion, that slowly shifted to the voluntary model.
And then the 1980s hit. And with them, a new fear, something that changed blood banking forever.
The AIDS epidemic exploded into public consciousness in the early 1980s. It was scary, misunderstood, and critically transmissible through blood.
For hemophiliacs and patients with bleeding disorders, it was devastating. Many had been given blood-based clotting treatments made from pooled plasma, and some of that plasma had HIV.
Between 1979 and 1984, over half of the hemophilia population in the U.S. contracted HIV from contaminated blood products. Over half from blood products, transfusions, not sexual activity.
Yeah. It was a massive failure. Blood was supposed to be life-saving. Suddenly, it could kill you.
Blood centers responded by implementing stricter donor questionnaires and new testing protocols. In 1985, the FDA licensed the first HIV blood test. Every donation would now be screened, which is smart.
Yeah. And here's the thing. People panicked, donors disappeared, recipients hesitated, mistrust spread.
It took years to regain public confidence in the blood supply, but safety improved dramatically. Pathogen testing, stricter storage, improved tracking, everything, got sharper.
But stigma lingered, especially for gay men. In 1983, the FDA implemented a lifetime ban on men who had sex with men, MSM, even once since 1977.
And that ban was for donating blood.
Yes.
Not like
Forever.
for and that ban lasted for decades. Even as science improved, even as HIV detection tests got better and faster, the policy stuck.
That's going to change later in our story. But at this point in history, blood was both more precious and more politicized than ever.
Yep.
By the 1990s, American blood banking was entering a new phase. More science, more safety, and more scrutiny.
And more computers. Thank you, 1990s and on. The database got bigger, smarter. Tracking systems were upgraded. If you donated blood in Boise, it could be traced all the way to a patient in Portland.
And with barcoding, scanning, and rapid diagnostics, blood centers can test for HIV, hepatitis B and C, syphilis, and other pathogens within hours.
The turnaround got faster, the risk got lower, but the challenges, they didn't go away.
One of the defining moments for modern blood donation came on a Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001. What were you doing that day?
I was a junior in high school. I was in a career technical program and literally watching television when it happened.
Nice. I was in a computer class.
Mine was
And that's when, the internet kind of crashed.
TV and
Everybody using it.
editing software thingy. I don't remember.
Right.
But yeah. The attacks triggered a nationwide response. People poured into donation centers around the country, lining up for hours.
The desire to do something was powerful, but there was a catch. Most of that blood wasn't used for 9/11 victims. The injuries were so catastrophic that tragically, most didn't make it to hospitals.
Still, the surge of donors saved lives later. That blood stock was redirected to hospitals all over the country. It's one of those odd facts. Sometimes the best way to respond to a crisis is to prepare for the next one.
Same story with Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The Gulf Coast's donation infrastructure was shattered, and blood from other states kept hospitals afloat. The Red Cross and independent blood banks rushed shipments in.
That's where coordination matters. Local blood banks supply local hospitals, but national organizations like the Red Cross connect like emergency distributors.
Let's clear something up here because a lot of people don't realize that not all donation centers do the same thing.
Exactly. There are blood banks like Community Blood Bank of Northwestern Pennsylvania and Western New York. They collect whole blood, platelets, plasma, and more, but it stays local. Their products go directly to local hospitals. No middleman.
Then there's the Red Cross. Their reach is global. They respond to disasters, send blood around the country, and help when local banks run dry. They're massive, and they help when things get chaotic.
Then we've got plasma centers. These are used for usually for profit. You sit in a recliner, they extract your plasma and return the rest. You get paid, but that plasma, it's not used for transfusions. It's used for medications like clotting factors, vaccines, and research.
Important stuff, sure. But if you want your donation to go straight into someone's arm at the ER, go to a blood bank. That's where it happens.
In the 2000s and 2010s, blood donation technology continued evolving. Automated apheresis machines allow for platelet-only or plasma-only donations. The process got even more efficient, and you could target specific components.
Let's break that down real quick. If you do a whole blood donation, it's usually 1 pint, and it can be separated into red cells, plasma, and platelets. That's great for flexibility.
But if you do platelets, it's more specialized. The machine extracts platelets and plasma, then returns your red cells. Each donation can help cancer patients, trauma victims, or premature babies. Anyone who needs clotting support.
Plasma-only donations are similar. And then there's double red donations, where they collect 2 units of red cells and return the rest. That's ideal for trauma use and O-negative donors.
It's all incredibly cool. Like, blood banking has its own video game upgrade tree.
If by cool you mean sterile and full of needles, then yes, Very cool.
Come on, Dan. Some of us actually like giving blood. Juice box? Yes, please.
One of the biggest changes in this era wasn't technological, it was sociological. Medical science started emphasizing the need for diverse donors.
Turns out, not all blood is the same.
Shocking.
Beyond the usual ABO and RH stuff, there are minor antigens, and some are more common in specific racial and ethnic groups.
If a patient has one of these rare antigens or needs antigen-negative blood, they may only be compatible with a donor from a similar background.
So when the donor base isn't diverse, it puts patients at risk. That's especially true for folks with sickle cell disease, who often need ongoing transfusions that match their specific antigen profile.
That's why blood centers started outreach campaigns, targeting underrepresented communities, educating, building trust, because if they don't find the match locally, they have to rely on national registries.
And that can mean delays in care. This is life or death stuff.
Yay. So here we are, the modern day.
Woohoo!
The tech has evolved, the testing has improved, and we still haven't invented synthetic blood, meaning this whole system still runs on one thing: you.
You, me, the neighbor who shows up once a year, the regular who comes in like clockwork. We're the pipeline. Without donors, hospitals have nothing.
And to help us understand what's happening right now in blood donation and how you can help, we're thrilled to welcome Stephanie from the Community Blood Bank of Northwestern Pennsylvania and Western New York, our region's sole blood supplier.
Hi.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
You're doing the real work, so let's dive in. What exactly is Community Blood Bank?
So the Community Blood Bank, or CBB as we call it, is the local blood center. We are a nonprofit organization who is the sole supplier of blood products to the hospitals in our area.
And you're not just collecting, you're also processing, right?
Yes, myself and the other component techs are the ones in the lab who are actually processing down your blood into the different components. So the red cells, the plasma, and the cryoprecipitate.
Cryoprecipitate? Sounds like something Elsa would use in a science lab.
Well, the cryoprecipitate, or what we call cryo, is part of the plasma that actually acts as basically the Band-Aid to help your platelets stick together to form blood clots.
And platelets, those don't come from the lab, right?
Our platelets are collected through an apheresis machine, so at the time that you're donating, the machine will actually collect your blood, spin it down, and give you back your red cells and a good chunk of your plasma, and we keep the platelets.
Okay, so walk us through the types of donations someone can do.
Right, so the types of donations that you can do at CBB would be a whole blood donation, which is basically just giving a pint of your red cells, plasma, platelet, and white cells. We can also do a plasma donation, which, like the platelets and the double red procedure, they're apheresis donations. So what happens is when you donate, your blood goes into a mini centrifuge, basically, and you get either your plasma or your red cells back, just depending on the donation type that you're doing that day.
Let's talk real world. Where is this blood going?
Well, when you donate at CBB, your blood or blood products, depending on what you donate, is going to local hospitals, so which means local cancer patients, local surgeries for organ transplants, open heart surgeries, major traumas. It also goes to things like premature babies, patients with bleeding disorders.
That's such a huge variety, from babies to elders, from cancer ward to maternity floors.
Exactly. So when you donate, you're actually saving up to 3 lives with that one donation.
Let's dig into blood types. Universal donor, universal recipient. Go.
All right. So the universal donor is O negative. So a lot of times when we don't know a patient's blood type, so say for like traumas, car accidents, things like that, O negative is what a patient would typically receive. And for the universal recipient, that would be your AB. Now, if you're talking about plasma, AB is actually the universal donor. So on top of your ABO and RH type, or your blood type, positive or negative, we also look for rare antigens in your blood. So this way, if somebody with, like, say, sickle cell or other chronic conditions that need rare or specific matches, we would need to make sure we have a diverse donor population to be able to accommodate that.
Because if we can't find the match locally...
So if we can't find a match locally, we actually have to get blood from another blood center, which could mean delays.
Let's talk eligibility. There were some big changes recently.
Yeah, so in 2023, the FDA shifted away from just blanket bans based on sexual orientation, and now all donors are screened based on individual behavior and not identity.
That means members of the LGBTQIA+ community can donate under the same rules as everyone else.
Exactly. CBB, we welcome all donor types.
All right, let's talk about summer. It's donation season's Bermuda Triangle, right?
Yeah, so during the summer, our donations typically tend to drop off. We host a lot of blood drives at high schools and colleges, and when they're not in school, we tend to see lower donation turnouts. Also, families are on vacation. There's also more car accidents, motorcycle accidents, things like that we still need the donors to turn up, but doesn't always happen.
Which brings us to...
So our next big donor event is Bloodstock. So yes, it's a play on Woodstock. It's basically a sequel to our donor day that we host in May. So there's going to be food trucks, live music, prize giveaways, and obviously donors.
A musical festival for saving lives? Count me in.
So how can someone donate?
So the first start would be to go to our website, which is www.forhearts.org. And there you can find a blood drive hosted in your area. You're able to schedule an appointment to donate, and you can actually use our Quick Pass to fill out your donor history form before you even come in.
Okay, last pitch. Why should someone donate today?
Well, a good reason to donate is every day, somewhere in our community needs blood to survive. So whether it's emergencies or somebody is undergoing chemotherapy, surgery, childbirth, chronic illnesses, there's no substitute from blood. We solely rely on our donors to help that.
Stephanie, thank you for the work you do and for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and hopefully we'll see some of your listeners at Bloodstock on this Friday, August 1st.
Blood is life, plain and simple. It flows through us, and sometimes it flows through someone else because of us.
So if you've never donated before, maybe this is the year, the season, the moment. You can help a stranger survive a crisis or help a child see another birthday.
Visit forhearts.org, roll up a sleeve, and maybe we'll see you at Bloodstock.
Until next time, stay weird. Stay kind, and if you're able, donate.
We'll see you both on the next episode of
Time Tellers. Bye.